You're listening to Podcast Rockstars, the show helping business leaders become podcast legends. Now, here's your host, Don Lidwell.
Welcome back to Podcast Rockstars, the show that helps business leaders become podcast legends. I'm your host, Don Lidwell, the founder of Lidwell Writing Services, and my guest today is podcast marketing consultant Xavi Umeh. Xavi is the founder of Brandedpod, a marketing company that helps startup consultants gain new clients through their podcast. He believes that podcasting is hands down the most effective way to not only build your brand online, but consistently bring in new clients for your business. Xavi joins me today to share his 6-step strategy for turning podcast listeners into new clients and customers, even if you have a small audience. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Xavi. Xavi Umeh, welcome to Podcast Rockstars.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be on here. I've been waiting for this, actually. I think I was your first podcast that you have featured then, right?
Yeah. You were the very first host that reached out to me to be on your show, and I was like so nervous.
I'm super excited about this. And I don't do too many interviews, but I've started recently. So this is one of the few that I've done this year anyway. So super excited about this.
Oh, awesome. So before we dive into the main topic today, how about you tell us a little bit about you, your business, and how you got started in podcasting?
I've actually got a very interesting story, actually. A lot of people don't know this, but my background is music. I am a trained sound engineer. And once upon a time, it was my dream to be like this, big music guy thing in the music industry. Yeah. So what sound engineering means is that I spend a lot of time in the studio making audio recordings sound nice. Basically, that is my job. And I also wanted to have a business in the music industry. Yeah. And I did attempt to do that, to have a music business, but I struggled a lot. Like most entrepreneurs, I failed because mostly why I failed is that I realized that if I was going to be successful in music, I would need to know the business side of things, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to teach myself the whole business thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did is I'm going to have to put this music aside and figure out this whole business thing. So for me, I needed to figure out a way to use my skills, which was the audio engineering side of things, to actually help businesses, as in do other things, yeah? And I think it was through a Facebook group. Somebody told me, you know what, how about I edit their podcast? After editing the podcast, I was like, interesting. So people actually pay money for pay you to edit their shows, and then you could have this thing going. Anyway, I joined the group and I decided, you know what, I'm going to have a podcast business. So I joined that group to network with other podcasters, and I put an ad if there was anybody that needed to try my services for free, and that is pretty much how I got started as a podcast producer, basically.
And you have a show also, don't you?
Yeah, I do. My Brandedpod show. I'm also working on a second show at the moment. Brandedpod is where we interview professionals in the health and wellness industry. It's actually titled the Health Business Show. So if you're listening to this and you're a health coach and you want tips to help you grow your business, then yeah, that show will be good for you.
That is a different show than the one I was on.
The thing is, yeah, I experiment a lot. I test out so many things in terms of podcasting, which is part of what we're going to be talking about today. I've had a couple shows and some have succeeded, some have failed. Whenever I figure out something, I start a new one to test out many things. And then I'm finally where I'm at now.
You said that you test out a lot of things. So I'm assuming that all of this testing is where you came up with your 6 steps to get clients from podcasting.
Yeah, my ideal situation with a podcast, because I'm a horrible marketer. Like I like to tell people, I'm not like marketing professional. I'm just an ordinary guy that has figured out how to get clients or how to do business or whatever. Yeah. So what I wanted though with the podcast, I wanted the podcast to be my sole marketing channel. So what that means is that I just want to have this podcast and just get clients from it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out that is such a very difficult thing to do, especially with how people see podcasting, because most people see podcasting as you start it and then you get an audience and then you're supposed to monetize your audience. But it doesn't work that way. And like you would know, it takes time. If you're going to build an audience, it will take time to do that. So for me, I'm testing all these things and in testing out all these other shows and all these things, I've seen what has been successful for me because of the problem I wanted to solve was getting clients. Yeah. So I've seen what has really worked very well. Based on my testing and the results I've been able to achieve, I've created this whole 6 steps that will help anybody looking to use a podcast to market their business to start getting clients from it as well.
So let's talk about those 6 steps. What are they first?
Okay. The 6 steps are: step 1, you plan. Step 2, you assemble. And step 3, you launch. And step 4, you monetize. Step 5, you grow. And then step 6, you optimize.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about step 1.
Planning, yeah. For me, this is the most important part of the podcast. Before you launch a podcast, this is the most important thing. Like, if you get this wrong, your podcast is doomed. It's as simple as that. I see this as the foundation of your whole show. And for me, I am big on strategy. Basically, they want to start this podcast, build this audience, and then monetize the audience. Yeah, that's what most people want to do, which is fair. That could work, But if you don't plan your show properly and just start expecting that people will listen and, all this audience will come to you and stuff like that, you're in for a very, very big surprise. That's all I will say with that. So anyway, but in order to plan your show, there's 6 things you need to get right, basically. Yeah. And this comes after a lot of testing I've done, working with other marketers as well. You have to identify these 6 things. And the 6 things are, you need to know who the seller is. And this is where branding comes in. This will be your brand, basically. So if you're an accountant starting a podcast, yeah, you need to know your brand, basically. And this is where you need to do a bit of a branding exercise before you even launch the podcast, yeah? And then you need to know who your buyer is. And this is where niching down comes in. And I work with a lot of newbies. And when I ask them, who's your target market, they tell me anybody. And the moment they say anybody, then I'm like, okay. I like to tell them that anybody is not an acceptable answer. And this all comes after my years of experience with this. And to give yourself less headache with this, yeah, just choose a vertical, they call it in business, and just go with that. So if you're an accountant, you could be like, I'm an accountant for lawyers, or I'm a web designer for consultants or stuff like that. So just pick one of this niche and just become a specialist for this vertical. It will save you a lot of headache when it comes to podcasting. And it will also help you identify the third thing you got to do when you plan, which is identifying the problem that you're solving. The truth about business is that if there's no problem, nobody's buying anything from you. It's as simple as that. You need to be solving a problem, yeah? And basically, if you're going to start a podcast, yeah, your podcast should be a resource for your target buyer. The sole purpose of that podcast is to solve their problem of the target buyer. Basically, the content you're giving out for free is solving their problems for free. But you're also going to be selling solutions to the other problem, which is step 4. But before I talk about the 4th thing you got to do, identifying the problem, a lot of people think this is easy, but for me, this is one of the most difficult thing to do. You might think as a web designer, yeah, I design websites, but the truth is that not many people are waking up thinking, I got to design a website. You need to figure out what real business problem you're actually solving, before you even launch your podcast, yeah, because of all this will help you with the audience, even when you start building the audience and stuff like that. And then when you figure out that problem, you need to now create your solution. to that problem. And this is where you start identifying the topics you're going to cover in your podcast. Yeah, because every episode should be a solution to your listener's problem in this case. And obviously you've got your paid solution, whatever it is you're selling, but through your episodes, you're helping them out for free. And then the fifth thing you need to do when you plan is to nail your message. You gotta nail your message to your listener or your target buyer. So say you were targeting health coaches, you need to be able to say stuff to them that they'll be like, yeah, I want to work with you. Because this is where you could now bring in happy clients on your show, what I call testimonial episodes. That is part of your messaging, showing them that you understand the problem that they're going through. That is also part of your message. This is where you now create episodes that address that problem. There is 2 problems that your target buyer has. The first one is the problem that you can solve for them. And the second problem is the one that you can't solve for them. You as a master of your art, that is your domain. So that you're going to be creating content around that.
Right.
However, let's just say you were targeting health coaches, and health coach might have accounting problems. And this is where you could now bring it on an accountant on your show to address those problems for the health coach. This is where your podcast now gets very rich and diverse with the content you're creating.
We hear a lot of similar stuff from business coaches.
Yeah.
Whenever they're helping somebody plan their business.
Yeah.
Basically, step 1 of planning your podcast, you basically need to look at it from a business lens.
Yes, it's the same thing. You're spot on. But you'll be surprised how many people do not know this, or maybe they've done this and they've forgotten this. What podcasting is marketing, and marketing needs a plan. And your marketing plan should link to your business plan.
Amen.
But you'd be surprised how many people do not put this into consideration. They just want to jump on and start doing stuff. And then I have to now ground them and tell them, go back to your business plan. You forget that you're a business. Yeah. Podcast is here to help you market the business. Yeah. Now, after you've locked down this whole 5 things, which are the seller, the buyer, the problem, the solution, the message, you now design your podcast. What you want to do when you design your podcast is 2 things. You want to design a podcast that your ideal buyer wants to listen to, and 2, potential business partners want to be interviewed on.
How would somebody do that?
I give my clients this exercise to do. And once they go through this exercise, that will help us design that exact podcast. Because what that means is that at the problem stage, like I said, in your case, show notes is your domain. Yeah. Mm-hmm. With health coaches, when we now identify the other problems that health coaches go through, say accounting, what kind of software they're using, legal problems, maybe web design, stuff like that. We now identify these other problems. Then we now look at these guys and be like, maybe we could partner with these guys. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you bring them on your show. When you identify I call them type B problems. Yeah. When you identify those type B problems and who could solve those problems for your target audience, that will determine the type of guests you're going to bring on your show. You are targeting the same people that they're targeting. They are very likely to want to be interviewed on your show as well. If that makes sense.
I see. So basically one feeds into the other.
Exactly. And this is super, like I said, and this planning alone, I spend a lot of time with my clients on this because you have to get this right. If any of these things is not right, your whole marketing is going to struggle. You're going to struggle to sell your services if any of this is not right. Yeah. Because of maybe your messaging is not connecting with them. Maybe you're not targeting the right people. Maybe you don't even know the problem that you're solving, or maybe you just designed the wrong podcast. All these have to be 10 over 10 before you even launch the podcast in the first place. Yeah?
Right. So everything has to kind of align with your goals and what you want to accomplish with the show.
And then once you do that, once we're happy with the plan we've created, the next step of the strategy is assemble. And assemble is also key as well. So now what you've got is a plan. I prefer an audience first approach. This is where you assemble the audience first and then launch the podcast in front of the audience, if that makes sense.
So how do you assemble an audience for a show that has not launched yet?
That is the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? When I say audience here, a lot of people, obviously, because we listen to a lot of marketers, the audience sounds like you need like 10,000 people or something like that. This is how you do it, yeah? You start a Facebook group for your podcast and then meet the people around you that fit your ideal buyer profile, your target buyers, and then tell them you're creating this podcast that will help them do whatever, yeah? Mm-hmm. And then ask them if they'll be interested in listening to it.
And see, I did something similar to that for this show. We do have a Facebook group.
Okay.
I found that it's easier to promote the Facebook group once the show has launched. So how do you promote the Facebook group to build the audience before the show has launched?
It doesn't matter if you get like 10 people in the group. I call them beta listeners, because you're going to design this thing in front of them and you're going to need a lot of feedback while you're designing and launching the podcast. So you need this initial group of people to help you do that. At this stage, it's not organic. I'm not selling anything to you. I'm just launching a podcast. So you guys are my launch audience, basically. This is where you do stuff like, yo, guys, check out this logo I'm designing. Which ones do you guys prefer? What do you guys think of the music? What kind of guests do you guys want? What are you struggling with? All these kind of questions. A lot of market research for the launch of your podcast. And what doing this will help you do is that your launch audience will be better vested in your podcast, if that makes sense. You engage them better. And when it's time to grow, these guys will also bring more people into your group.
It makes perfect sense. As you were explaining it, I was actually picturing somebody who did that. I don't know how I ought to reach out to her and see if she'd be a guest on the show, because I don't know exactly how well that worked out for her, but she did that. She created a Facebook group. I think she even had a LinkedIn group too at some point. And she built her show with that group, and people would comment and make suggestions, and she would ask for advice and all of that. And the only reason I remember that is because I remember reading the description for the show for iTunes in that group before the podcast launched, and we were helping her with some of the copywriting.
Yeah. I learned this after working with a lot of software guys, the guys that build software. Mm-hmm. They build software with beta testers. Yeah. Before they even launch it, they go through this lean management, lean process and all that stuff. And it's pretty much like you're saying, it's the same thing. You develop it there so that by the time you launch, you've got this awesome thing.
And it's tailored for the audience.
Exactly. And it's tailored for that audience, This is another thing I get very particular about with my clients, because I keep telling them, yo, don't forget that this is to help you market your business. That's what this podcast, because we tend to forget this sometimes. And then sometimes we need somebody to put us back on track. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about emails? Like your email subscribers, would you kind of lump them into your market, your test, quote unquote, test subjects?
That is a very, very, you're asking some brilliant question. That is a brilliant question. Yes. This is how you do that. Yeah. The same way you send them an email, be like, yo, I'm launching this show. Any of you interested? If you're interested, ask them, because I'm always playing that interest game. I'm not forcing anybody to do anything. Yeah. If you're interested, here's the link, join the group. The same way you do that, because obviously how email works. Not everybody is engaging with you. That some people are, some people are not.
Right.
But get as many people as you can in that group, as many people, because of that will be your audience going forward.
And see, whenever I launched, I started with just a survey.
Okay.
I'm actually continuing to put a link to that survey in our emails, and I didn't think about doing that with the Facebook group instead.
Yeah. A lot of people don't do this, but I don't know why. I really don't know why, because I think what it is, because of podcasting. One of my criticisms of the guys that came before us, the older guys, it was such a different time back then. Fortunately or unfortunately, their methods and their ways are still, the same way that they did it back then, if you get what I mean. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example, like ID3 tags, yeah? For me, that is the most pointless, useless thing ever to do. To do. But I still get some clients tell me they want me to put the ID3 tags in the audio. Whatever, it's your money, you're paying for it.
I thought the ID3 tags had to do with SEO, though.
Nah. Well, maybe it does. Maybe it does. I don't know. But looking at with what Spotify is doing now, because of Spotify is going to change this whole podcasting game. It's going to turn it on its head right now, you know. If you're listening to this and you're not on Spotify, you better get on Spotify as quickly as possible. Because Spotify is about to take this whole thing. They're about to become the YouTube of podcasting. They're about to own this thing, basically, yeah. And good question, in terms of SEO is going to be what you tag now. I don't think it's going to have to do with the audio file itself. It's going to be what you tag now while you upload the thing. Yeah. So for me, maybe ID3 that. It's kind of like tagging your YouTube video. Maybe that works. I don't know. Maybe if you name your YouTube file properly, maybe the Google thing does this thing. I don't know. But trust me, it's not as important as people make it to be. The same with new and noteworthy, all that stuff.
I have heard that 1,000 times, and yet people are still trying to go after.
Yeah. All this, it's from the back in the day information. That's where it's come from, and it still sticks around to this day. But regardless, for me, I am super, super focused on profitability. That is what I'm super focused on. I'm not necessarily trying to create a popular show for you. I'm trying to help you sell your services, if that makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, so when we look at profitability now, we look at the things that really, really affect how you sell your services. So anyway, that is a step to assembling your launch audience. Yeah. And when you've assembled the audience, yeah, it's time to move on to launching your show. Now, I recommend launching your show in 2 stages. There's the development of your show, and then there's the actual launch of it. Yeah. Development is where we've talked about that a little bit in terms of creating the album cover, you know, choosing the right music, intro, outro, all that stuff. Yeah. And you want to do this and get feedback from your launch audience as well. Yeah, in terms of launching your show, you could do stuff as drop 8 episodes at once or spread 8 episodes over a week. Now, this is where you now decide how you want to go, if that makes sense. Because for me, I've seen people have this whole contest to launch their shows. Maybe they've got an audience for that. Maybe that works, you know. For me, there's no wrong way to launch a show. Like I said, if you focus on your business, you would see that how you launch your show doesn't necessarily matter.
Oh, that's an interesting concept, because like we launched with 10.
Okay.
Partially because 1, it was advised to me.
Okay.
But 2, the podcast industry is just growing so big and so fast. Like I think we're already up to over 400,000 or 500,000 podcasts on iTunes now.
Yeah.
So launching with 1 show is, one of our previous guests had said, is like a drop of rain in an ocean.
Yes, as long as you get results from it, you know, what result are you looking for? If the way you launch your show helps you get those results, man, you're good to go. For me, I'm focused on selling your services, yeah? If launching 10 shows helps you sell your services, brilliant, awesome. If launching 1 show at a time helps you sell your services, awesome. When I explain this to my clients, yeah, this is where I said, I'm not trying to create a popular show for you. I'm trying to help you sell your services, yeah?
Right. Something that kind of ties in your thought process regarding how many episodes to launch. The assemble step kind of plays into that, because you've already got, even if it's small, you've already got
potential buyers.
Yeah, an audience built in before the show launches, where a lot of people, they are launching to build the audience.
Exactly. You have to populate this group with the right audience. Yeah, that's how I like to explain it. The right audience are people that will buy your services, or potential buyers is who you want in that group. Because I'm still stressing that we're trying to sell your services here. That's what we're trying to do. Brings us to step 4, which is monetization. We want to try and monetize those guys as quickly as possible. they are potential buyers. They've got a problem we can solve. We've nailed our messaging to them. We've showed them everything. We've done everything, right? Say we had 10 people in there. If we're able to get 1% of those into buyers, for me, that is good, versus launching to the show and you get 200,000 listeners and nobody buys your product.
Right. Right. So when we talk about monetization, are we talking about selling the services or selling like affiliate program through affiliate links, or how are we talking about monetizing?
It's a brilliant question. And this is where you as the CEO of your company decides what works best for your company. If I was working with you, I believe what will make you happy is to have more clients for your show notes company. True or false? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the goal we're trying to achieve here. Yeah. And let's say in your case, if we've gone through this exercise, we look for who the exact target buyer is. Yeah. We look for people that are highly likely to take your services up. Yeah. Let's say we've got 10 of them in this group. My goal for the monetization will be to convert some of those guys into clients for you as quickly as possible. What I've seen work very, very well. You create what is a launch offer, kind of like a thank you for being with me through this group, for being with me at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
I've created this special offer for you guys, just for you guys, yeah? Someone likely to take you up on your offer, on that launch offer that you create just for them. And if you make it special, put some time thing limit, say it's only available for a week or something like that, kind of like launching a course or launching a product, for them, and because of they are going through this problem, you're offering them a solution, and you're offering them a solution at a discount, putting some pressure on there. They're very, very likely to take you up on that. Yeah. And if you did that, and let's say out of 10, if one of them took you up on your offer, for me, that is a successful launch of a podcast.
So you're essentially saying with this strategy, you would be able to monetize the show basically within the first month or less.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the goal, actually. That is actually the goal. Because of, and this, like I said initially, I'm not like this marketing guy. I'm just somebody that has figured out how to sell. There's even ways to monetize even quicker than that, I am super, super focused on selling your services. That's what I'm super focused on. I don't want to be distracted by number of downloads. Forget me. I've had a client do one show and make 50 grand just by interviewing one person.
Wow.
This is the thing what a lot of people do not get. This whole down, and this, like I said, it's coming from the back in the days. If you do this right, you don't need to worry about downloads. That's hard, man. As in trying to convert directly, that is difficult. You're interviewing all these special people. You might as well leverage this interviews you're doing, if that makes sense.
Right. And I've actually heard from multiple people that you shouldn't worry about the downloads anyway. Number one, because if somebody's subscribed to your show, you're going to get those downloads anyhow.
Yeah.
And number two, at least early on, you shouldn't worry about the downloads because it is a slow process.
True. Very, very true. And in terms of downloads, unless this is what another thing I like to tell my clients, yeah. We have to remember the podcast is not the product, yeah. We have to keep our focus on what is the product. A lot of people spend all this time the podcast is not the product. What is the product is what you're selling. That's where your uber focus should be.
So how would you recommend people to turn those podcast listeners into buyers?
This now depends on how you sell your services. Maybe you offer a free trial. Maybe you offer, I don't know what is I call it the bait. If I was a podcaster, maybe struggling with show notes. What is your messaging to me? As in, how do I try your services? Or how would you approach selling to me, basically?
I suppose I could do a special offer, a discount.
Okay. This is what I'd say. Yeah. Offer something for free, something really valuable for free at the end of every...
Like a lead magnet.
Yes, but way more than just a downloaded page or something like that. Like if you're a service provider, give them a taste of your service is what I'm saying, basically. Make it so easy for them to say yes. Maybe one show note for free, something like that. If that works for your business though, because I know you might need to pay people or something. You might be a loss leader. I don't know. But you do something really close that really aligns closely to selling your service, if that makes sense. Yeah. Instead of just a cheat sheet or something like that, you now need to now start remarketing to, and email marketing. That is another game on its own. The whole email marketing thing. For me, the quicker they try your service, if you could build your business in a way that prospects are actually trying your service quickly, so that they can make their mind up if they're going to continue, yes or no. For me, is one episode free. I'll edit one episode for free for you.
I see. I see. But there's a lot of business coaches out there that frown upon giving a free like that away.
Yeah, everybody has their own methods, I guess. For me, like I said, I'm not even a business coach or anything. I'm just like, that works best for me in my experience.
That's what you've noticed to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because of there's so much competition out there. There is so much competition. And unless you're super, super good with email marketing or Facebook ads, unless you've got all that locked down, all these other stuff that people are recommending to us is not going to work. I don't need to tell you. I'm sure you've tried certain things that the experts point you to try that haven't worked as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. I don't want to say, but some people just want to sell you other stuff, So for me, I like to get very practical and because I have learned the more risk-free you make your service or that trial, the more, I've seen people offer like a month free of their thing. You pay, but if you don't like it, they give you your money back after 30 days, Mm-hmm. I've seen that method also works very well as well, because I've
seen that with courses.
Yeah, with courses. Yeah, exactly. So if you could come up with something along that lines for your business, you would be able to get, because it's already very difficult to get people, to get that interest. So why even make it harder? Just make it as quickly for them to try your service as possible, so that, they can move through that sales process quickly. For my program right now, which we'll talk about at the end, I'm going with the 14-day trial. You try the program for 14 days because I want you to make up your mind quickly if this is something you want to move forward with. You try for 14 days. If it's not your thing, no problem. I give you your money back, no problem. If it's your thing, then we carry on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So after monetize. And by the way, why does monetize come before grow?
The reason is because, one, I am super uber focused on profitability. Yeah? So I want you to start making money as quickly as possible for a couple reasons. One is validation. You don't want to wait too long to make money. And two, I want you to be able to afford my services. I want you to start making money quickly, so that we're not going to have problems going forward. And the third reason is, once you've cracked monetization, all you need to do is just scale whatever you're doing.
True.
So that's why you need to crack that monetization bit as well.
Okay, so once you've cracked it, how do you grow it?
How do you grow it? I'll be honest, I'm still testing out this part of growth, because of growth, for me, I don't like the free ways to grow. I really don't like free, because of it involves me dwelling in Facebook groups and all that stuff. I don't like all that stuff. Yeah. So for me, I am testing out advertising here. Now I'm actually going to start a campaign next week to test out growth. But for me, it's all about throwing money into ads. So if you're monetizing already, if you've made some money in there, you might as well just throw money into ads. And then this is where your email list now comes in. You're growing that email list, which is creating like a lead magnet for your service. Maybe do like a free targeted thing. Okay, say in my case, I'll do like edit your podcast for free. That would be the lead magnet I'm promoting, not some cheat sheet. And then use the podcast to now remarket back to those who don't go ahead with it or something like that, if that makes sense. There's all strategy here that I'm still testing out, which I will definitely be creating content on this going forward. But I'm not going to do the whole free way. The free takes too long, and I don't have the time to do the free ways to grow. You know?
Right. But you had said about email. So are you talking about like creating a lead magnet of some kind and then using like Facebook ads?
Yes. Facebook ads, LinkedIn. I'm actually going to be doing a lot of YouTube ads for my program. Yeah. What I've done is I've created a free mini course. You watch the course, which I'm going to promote with ads. Obviously, I've got the podcast as well. You watch the course, it now becomes a numbers game, doesn't it? Of a percentage of those who watch the course, some will say yes, some will say no, some will say maybe. You know, it now becomes a number. And for those who are like not yet there, ready to buy, you now use the podcast as a remarketing to move them along the whole sales process, you know, if that makes sense. You know.
So are we talking about using Facebook ads to promote the lead magnet or the Facebook ads to promote a specific podcast episode?
It's a very good question. And this is two things I want to test out. I want to test out both. The answer to that question is I'm testing out both because I'm not sure exactly which of those two to do yet, because of either of them could work. Either of them could work. You could promote the podcast. Say you could create like 10 episodes, 10 special episodes, something like that, and then promote that. But my gut is telling me if I'm going to spend money on ads, I might as well make a return as quickly as possible. That is what my gut is telling me, you know. So, but I'm going to be honest here. I'm testing this out still. So I think if I'm going to choose either of those two, you ask me, I'd rather promote my service than promote my podcast. Because remember, I'm not trying to create a popular show. I'm trying to sell my service here.
And to be honest with you, it would make sense to do both.
Okay.
But I think it would probably make a little bit more sense to promote a lead magnet with paid advertising, especially if you are sending your email newsletter subscribers updates on when you drop a new episode.
Yeah.
Because then once you get them on your list, next week they get an email about your newest episode that's hook, line, and sinker.
Exactly. True. I will be updating as I grow. There's something even more important here when it comes to growth that I haven't talked about, because growth is two things, and growth is the one we're talking about now. And then there's growth, the one that I'm actually pushing all my clients to while I figure out this whole what method to work. The one I'm pushing them to is, like I said, you're going to be interviewing all these awesome people. How do we leverage these interviews to help you sell your services? You know, So exactly. So that is something within my control. That is something we can actually control. We could get very strategic about who we interview, you know, and this is something which I could talk about now, or I could come back and talk about, you know, because it's deep. Like I said, yeah, I've had a client have a guest on the show, and that led to a 50K deal at the end of that. So if we're going to interview all these people, yeah, how can we leverage those interviews? Yeah, that is, for me, is more within my control than trying Facebook ads and stuff and putting them through the email list. That could also work, but
it's a longer game.
Exactly. So now this is where I'm pushing now. Yeah. Now this is where I'm at. Yeah. This is where I'm at with this thing. Yeah. When it comes to selling, there's basically two ways to sell it. You either go directly after the consumer, after your target buyer, or you go indirectly. For me, indirect marketing is faster than flipping direct marketing. It's even easier. You could, like you were asking me, could you start monetizing in 30 days? I believe you can start monetizing the day you launch your podcast, you know. And how do you do that is, in your case, yeah, you obviously have referral partners, don't you? Yeah, I'm guessing. So that what you do is use your podcast to scale that, so that every guest you have on your show is a potential referral partner.
And how do you do that?
Oh Lord! Now this I could actually tell, but it's a very there's strategy behind this as well. There's another 5-step strategy behind this.
Mm-hmm.
So
I feel like we're about ready to give everything away.
everything. I don't mind. I really don't mind because I've actually created a free course that shows this exact thing I want to explain now. Because for me, this is even more valuable than doing the whole direct thing. Direct approach takes long. It's hard. You got to do all this know, like, and trust thing and all that stuff. Yeah. Indirectly, yeah. If we're gonna interview 52 people every year, that's a weekly show. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to convert each of those to referral partners, for me, personally, one referral partner is worth a lot more than one customer if it's done rightly. Because of one, I've had clients, one partner refer 4 people to me in the last, not, in a short space of time. And, for that is way more work than me trying to win 4 people as clients. Yeah.
Right. So what is it that you do to get the referrals like that? Is it after the episode is done recording in the post chat?
Yeah.
You ask.
Okay. I'm going to give you the $1 million receipt. These are the 5 steps to make that happen. If you decide to go after this indirect approach, you get strategic about who you interview them, you create content, you promote the content, all that stuff. Yeah. Then the real killer here is after you've done all that, you now pitch, to them. Yeah. You now be like, oh, yo, we target the same people. Maybe there's a way we could work together. And that is where you now create, because you get very proactive about this. Yeah. This is my problem with with the traditional way of referring. You're sitting back waiting for referrals, but you want to get proactive about getting those referrals, and that's a whole different ballgame I could talk about again. But after you've interviewed them, like me, like with this show, after you've published it and everything, you could then come back to me and be like, "We target the same people, Maybe I'd be interested if I send you a client, you give me a cut, or whatever, something like that, or." If I need show notes thingy or whatever, maybe you give me 50% discount on your show note services. If it depends. Exactly. It depends on how you design your partner program now to pull this off.
So it's not so much a referral thing as a partnership.
It's more partner. I'm calling it more of a strategic partnership, strategic alliance, with your guests, This for me right there is the killer right there. Forget this whole building an audience thing. That is too long. That is because everybody is trying to build an audience right there. Why don't we let them build their audience and then piggyback off them? Mm-hmm. And that is kind of like where I'm going with this whole thing. There's a lot more detail into this and more strategy into this, but because you got to get very, very strategic about this. And if you pursue this as a strategy, you can start monetizing as quickly as a day after launching your podcast. Because I don't know how much the lifetime value of a client is for you, but if even if one guest, say you interviewed, okay, let's say you interviewed me and I sent a client to you, I don't know, in 1 year. Yeah, this interview we've done is now worth the value of whatever that client has. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So I am a very introverted person.
Okay.
So I don't like pitching. Like I really do not like to pitch.
Okay.
So what do you say to those type of people that, they want to be able to promote their stuff, they want to be able to use their podcast to grow their business, but they don't necessarily want to go into a podcast interview with an ulterior motive at the end?
Okay, fair enough. I hear that all the time. Yes, if that's what you want to do, yeah, because obviously this is for people that want to do that. Yeah, you're right. If that's what you want to do, you don't want to pursue this. There's either it's going to happen organically, where it doesn't feel like you've got an ulterior motive. Yeah, you could do that. Or you try and crack the direct method, which is where you build your audience, but just do that knowing two things. Yeah, one, like already, building an audience takes time. It does take time. Converting that audience is another different story altogether. Yeah, and then growing that audience it's either gonna cost you a lot of time or a lot of money. That's what that growing that audience will do. For me personally, I'm with you. I'm such a I really don't like pitching and stuff like that. Forget that I'm on radio now, on the show talking all this stuff. I really don't like it. However, it turns out that this is common practice in business. A lot of businesses do this. I mean, some of the biggest companies in the world do this. Microsoft is now $1 trillion company, the last time I heard, and they are awesome at partnering. Microsoft is more of a partnership business than anything. They partner to grow their business,
So
and
essentially you're saying it's all about your mindset around it.
Yes.
Instead of thinking of it as you pitching your services or whatever, think of it as you providing value.
Exactly. Because if you could save me some money, and yes, you're right. You're spot on. And it's a mindset thing because of you coming to me. First of all, you've done me something really valuable. You've given me the opportunity to speak to your audience. That's something of value right there. You never know who's listening. Every podcast episode for businesses that know anyway is because there's in my course. I show you how to get high profile people on your show, even if you don't have an audience. Anyway, there's a way to do that. Yeah. Second of all, the partnerships you strike or the agreements you strike with your partners. Yeah, you're not a leech, basically. Yeah. Your partnership should work for everybody. It should work for you. It should work for your partner. It should work for the referrer, whoever they're referring to. Yeah, it's a win-win-win thing that you do with that. Yeah.
Okay.
You create that.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Okay, so let's move on to optimize.
Okay. In terms of optimization is once you've got things going. Before optimization is done throughout the whole process, by the way. However, optimization is just finding out what's working and doubling down on that, and stuff that isn't working, you stop doing that. Yeah. I'll give you an example. An example is like you got to optimize your mailing list because I'm a big fan of having mailing lists as well. You need to because it is leverage at the end of the day, and you could definitely use it in your favor. Yeah. However, owning an email list costs money, yeah, and there's gonna be people in there that haven't opened your emails in like 6 months or whatever, So you could now get rid of those people, send out an email that you're cleaning up your email list. If they don't reply to this, you're gonna get rid of them, yeah. And then you could save costs by doing that because some of these guys charge you by the number of subscribers you have, and also. You make sure that only those that are engaging with you on your email list are in your list. Yeah, so you have a really engaged list by doing that. Yeah, that's one way to optimize. Another way to optimize is to optimize your processes, your podcasting processes. Because you know this. There's a lot of moving parts with podcasting. Is that there's all this finding the guest, booking the interview. Which I super like your emails and your process and everything is awesome by the way, from scheduling to all that stuff. You need to optimize all that so that you're this well-oiled German machine. Yeah. Then because of the podcasting is for those who get it right, the podcast is going to be your most important business tool. Most important business marketing tool if you get it right. So you want it to be working really well. Your Facebook group that you have, which is all part of the machine, you need to optimize that as well. Try and get as much engagement in there as possible. Posting the right kind of content, asking the right kinds of questions. Try to get your guests in your groups as well, so that they can engage with your audience in there. Because I'm guessing maybe some of people listen to this might want to ask me a question or something like that. Might not become exactly stuff like that. Optimization is just making sure that the whole process works.
Right. That makes complete sense because, one of our past guests, they had said that, your podcast should be your number one, your top sales funnel.
It is.
But you have to make sure everything is in working order and there's no snags in the process from start to finish. Otherwise, it's going to be a pain in the butt.
True. Very, very true. Very, very true. And it could get very expensive as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very true. And this is kind of like why I'm uber focused on monetization and profitability, because you want the podcast to pay for itself. There's all this stuff. I mean, even hiring somebody else to do stuff for you costs money and stuff like that. So I know a lot of people like to talk about authority building and all that stuff. Yeah, if you know how to leverage that authority, then yeah, why not? If you don't know how to leverage that authority, then it's as worthless as anything. But that is just my opinion, I guess, my very strong opinion. But yeah.
You're just passionate.
I'm just super passionate about this. Like I work with a lot of clients and I try to tell them this, but they don't get it, And I have learned to stop fighting, or to stop imposing my thing on people. I literally, in my course, I literally tell people this is a solution. It's not the solution. Yeah.
Right.
If you try it and it makes sense for you, just like you decided to start your podcast. I mean, initially it didn't make sense for you to start it at that stage, now it makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this is something I don't like about some marketers. They will tell you, go do email, go do Facebook. In fact, I talk to some people and I tell them, don't even do podcasting, go on YouTube or go just go and figure out Facebook ads, because of it might not be your thing. And you know how it goes. If you don't like podcasting, if you don't enjoy doing these interviews, your show is gonna die.
Right.
Right.
You have to truly enjoy what you're doing, because that's actually going to come through on the mic.
Very, very true. Very, very true. So for me, and maybe that's why I shouldn't be saying some of the things I say, but but I truly tell people I'm not a marketer. You're not going to get marketing speak from me. I've just figured out a way how to make money, basically, or how to sell my own services. Not even. I'll tell you something. A very funny story, because I've got some beta testers testing my own program at the moment. And one of the guys talked to me yesterday, and he told me that he's using his podcast in a different way. That my thing he was trying to say my stuff is not. And I told him, because I was gonna. My initial reaction was to defend my position. I was gonna, but then I'm like, you know what? You're right, bro. You found a way to use the podcast that works for you. Because that's how I see podcasting. It's a tool, isn't it? You found a way to use it and I told them this is why the importance of niching down. Because of the truth is, my solution, I have created it for a particular kind of business. This is a very good example of one solution. Doesn't work for everybody. Exactly. He's saying my solution. Yeah, and it's fine. My solution is not for you. It's very, very fine. But it's perfect for another business,
Right.
And if you're that kind of a business, that is what I'm marketing that solution to, But yeah, I just told him that, and he's like, yeah, he understands, because he's one of those guys that tells me you got to market to everybody, and I just told him, man, fair enough. If you have the resources to do that, go ahead.
Okay, so one last question before we wrap up.
Yeah.
What is one tip or piece of advice you would give to an entrepreneur that is either new to podcasting or is considering launching a podcast?
Just start. No, I'm just joking. If you're thinking of starting a podcast, first of all, yes, it's one of the many marketing channels out there. But if you're gonna do this, like everything in life, you gotta plan. You gotta make sure you nail your plan very, very well before you even go ahead and record your first interview or your first episode. You have to make sure that you've got a plan for this, because you wouldn't start a business without a plan. We all know how that would go for you. The same with podcasting. You wouldn't build a house without like a blueprint or something, or you wouldn't build a house without a foundation. You need to get this right before you go ahead with this, because a plan will help you stay focused, and help you achieve whatever goals you want to achieve with the podcast. So for me, it's make sure you know your plan.
Amen. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insight, Xavi. Where can our audience go to learn more about you, your business, and what you've got cooking?
Awesome. At the moment, I'm cooking something very delicious. but yeah, they could go to brandedpod.com. I've got a free course there that pretty much explains most of what I've been talking about today. If you'd like to check that out, definitely do check that out. And then I've also got a special offer for your audience as well. If they're interested. The first exercise I do with my clients is to help them plan their podcast. So if you're interested in starting a podcast, you could come to me and we'll help you come up with a plan for free. And then you decide if this is something you want to go ahead with or not.
Very cool. You are the first person to give out an offer.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, I'm hoping this, if nothing else, that will give you clarity if you want to go forward with it. And if to do that, just reach out to me on Xavi at Brandedpod. Just tell me you heard me through Dawn's show, awesome show, and I'll know you came from there. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we will include links to your website, social media handles, and everything else, as well as your email at lidwellwriting.com/podcast/015.
Thanks for tuning in to Podcast Rockstars, sponsored by Lidwell Writing Services, because a great podcast deserves great show notes. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and leave us a review, and remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Join our exclusive Podcast Rockstars Facebook community to connect with other podcasting legends. In the Facebook community, you can ask your most pressing questions and tell us who you would love to hear on the show. And if you're ready to experience the power of great show notes, contact Dawn at lidwellwriting.com.